Chapter 12. Preserving the Environment. Section 1. After a somewhat disastrous beginning, Arthur and Mary's holiday was a mixture of delight and frustration. On the one hand, on the sunny days that began their holiday, they really appreciated the peace and quiet of rural Wales after the noise and bustle of London. The beach was only 10 minutes' drive from the cottage, and they were able to swim on Sundays in surroundings which contrasted rather sharply with the seaside resorts of southern England, with their neon lights and tawdry commercialism. Towards the end of their stay, however, there were 1 or 2 wet days when they found themselves more or less prisoners in the cottage. They couldn't even move the car because the wheels just spun in the mud. On the evening before they were due to leave, Arthur telephoned his mother in Applefield. She suggested that they should make a slight detour on their return and stay in Applefield for 1 night or perhaps 2 before going back to Earl's Court. After making sure the cottage was clean and tidy, they handed the key back to Mr. Davis on the Saturday morning, and after a pleasant drive through the centre of Wales, and then through the Cotswolds, they arrived in Applefield at about tea-time. As they drove round the village green towards Arthur's parents' house, they noticed a number of posters stuck on trees and garden gates saying, vandalism. They wondered what this was all about, and were surprised to see the same poster in the Newton sitting-room window. When they got in, they found that the only person in the house was Jennifer, home for one of the few free weekends she had during her training as a nurse. She explained that her parents had both gone to a meeting in the village hall to do with the matter that had caused all the posters in the village. Apparently, the Department of the Environment had published plans for a new motorway, which the villagers feared would go right through the village green and virtually split Applefield into 2. The whole village was up in arms about it, and they were determined to do everything in their power to get the Department of the Environment to think again. Arthur told Mary that his father often got bees in his bonnet about matters of this kind. "It's probably only a storm in a teacup," Arthur said. "And talking of teacups, Jennifer, wouldn't it be a good idea if you made us some tea?" Section 2.
Recently, more and more attention has been focused on the problems of preserving the environment. The fact that a government ministry called the Department of the Environment has been created shows how important the issue is considered to be. Over the past 30 years or so, the quality of many people's lives has deteriorated in some respects because of technological progress. Those people living near airports are constantly assailed by the noise of increasingly larger and more powerful jet aircraft taking off and landing. We have ugly buildings which have sprung up in towns and cities. Some of these are blocks of flats, high-rise buildings built because of the high price of land, which seem more like breeding boxes than houses where people have space to live. Worse still, much of our building effort has been channeled into the construction of more and more large office blocks at the expense of much-needed housing for the growing urban population. The motor car has been responsible for many changes in the environment. On the one hand, it has brought mobility to millions of people, but on the other, it's led to the construction of more and more noisy and dangerous roads, and has polluted the atmosphere with exhaust fumes. While towns and cities have become larger and uglier and more densely populated, the rural areas have lost most of their population owing to the need for fewer workers in agriculture. The countryside has also been affected by the large-scale use of insecticides. For one thing, the killing of insects has resulted in a loss of balance in the ecology. Insects, although a nuisance to farmers, provide food for birds. Many people are afraid that fruit and vegetables sprayed with chemicals may have some poisonous effect upon the people who eat them. Recently, however, certain countermeasures against the destruction of the environment have been introduced. One of the first acts of Parliament to counter pollution was the Clean Air Act, which opened the way to smokeless zones in large towns and cities. This followed a very bad winter in which many people with bronchial complaints became very ill or died through the effects of a mixture of smoke, fog, and fumes known as smog. Rivers which used to be fouled up with industrial chemical waste are now being cleaned, and fish, which couldn't live there a few years ago, can be caught again.
Section 3.
The Editor, the Berkshire and Buckinghamshire Gazette. Sir, yet again the unimaginative planners of Whitehall are proposing to bulldoze their way through our countryside in the name of progress. The proposed route of the M41 motorway, right through the centre of Applefields Village Green, one of the most unspoilt villages in Berkshire, is an example of their latest piece of idiocy. As usual, there was, as far as I can discover, no consultation whatsoever with any of the villagers, who are expected to accept in a docile fashion the splitting of their village in two. Apart from this, I, as a medical man, know only too well the effects of noise and fumes upon the mental and physical health of the local inhabitants. Therefore, I urge everybody who wishes to preserve our village intact to sign the petition we are organizing to send to the Minister and to attend our next meeting, to be held on September the 2nd at Applefield Village Hall at 7:30 p.m. Yours, etc., J. Newton, MRCP. Pear Tree Cottage, Applefield, Berkshire.
Dialogue.
Arthur, Mary, nice to see you both. How was your holiday?
Hello, Dad. Hello, Mum. It was fine, thanks. Except when it rained and we couldn't get the car to move.
That's funny. We haven't had a drop of rain here, have we, dear?
No, it's been glorious. We've had tea in the garden every day for the last fortnight.
Trust Arthur to find the one place in Britain where it's been raining.
Oh.
Did you have a good trip down, dear?
Yes, it was very quick, actually, especially on the motorway.
Don't talk to me about motorways. I expect Jennifer's told you where we've been this afternoon and why.
Yes, we noticed the posters stuck up all around the village. But do you seriously think you can make the ministry change their mind?
Well, we'll have a damn good try. After all, those people in Essex managed to make them think again over the third London airport. Really, the difficult thing is to get everybody to rally round.
How did you find out about it in the first place?
Well, it was 4 weeks ago, and there were these chaps on the village green with tape measures and coloured sticks and God knows what.
Yes, I was taking down the curtains in our bedroom. They needed a wash, you see. They hadn't been done since last spring. Where was I? Oh, yes, these men. Well, I saw them drive up in an official-looking van, and they got all their stuff out of the back. I knew they weren't local, because I'd never seen them before. You know, Mary, with Jack being a doctor, we know everybody round here.
Yes, well, your mother called me, and I'd known for some time that there was going to be a motorway somewhere around here, so I went over and asked them.
What did they say?
Well, they were most rude. Treated me as if I was the village idiot and told me to mind my own business.
Good Lord! What did you do then?
Ah, well, I had one up my sleeve there. I came straight in and got on the phone to old Nigel Fairweather, chap I knew at college, you know, who's actually quite high up in the ministry. He told me, off the record, of course, that my suspicions were right. So I wrote to our new MP and got him to ask a question in the House, and that was it.
Well, Dad, best of luck. It makes you think, doesn't it? The planners don't seem to bother about ordinary people.
No, they certainly don't.
Oral Practice 1. Listen and repeat. A. To move. Get the car to move. We couldn't get the car to move. It rained and we couldn't get the car to move. Except when it rained and we couldn't get the car to move. B.
It's been raining. In Britain, where it's been raining. The one place in Britain where it's been raining. Trust Arthur to find the one place in Britain where it's been raining.
C.
Motorways. About motorways. Talk to me about motorways. Don't talk to me about motorways.
D.
They're mines. Make the ministry change their minds? Think you can make the ministry change their minds? But do you seriously think you can make the ministry change their minds?
E.
Right. My suspicions were right. Off the record, of course, that my suspicions were right. He told me off the record, of course, that my suspicions were right.
Oral Practice 2. You will now hear a dialogue in which you are going to take part. Listen, please.
Have you seen that new office building in the High Street? There are so many. Which one do you mean? The one they've put up where the old post office used to be? No, not that one. That's not too bad, actually. No, I'm talking about the one next to the station. Oh, that one. Yes, I know. It's the ugliest building I've ever seen. Yes, and the thing is, there used to be a lovely old 18th century house there. I know. I can't think whatever made the council give permission for it to be demolished. Yes, there ought to be a law against demolishing buildings like that, especially when you see what they've put up in its place. You'd think someone could have got the government to put it on the list of protected buildings, wouldn't you? They'll be building a motorway through Hyde Park next. It makes you think, doesn't it? What's the world coming to?
Now you will hear the dialogue again. This time you must talk to your friend and speak at the same time as the speaker on the tape.
Have you seen that new office building in the High Street? There are so many. Which one do you mean? The one they put up where the old post office used to be? No, not that one. That's not too bad, actually. No, I'm talking about the one next to the station. Oh, that one. Yes, I know. It's the ugliest building I've ever seen. Yes, and the thing is, there used to be a lovely old 18th century house there. I know. I can't think whatever made the council give permission for it to be demolished. Yes, there ought to be a law against demolishing buildings like that, especially when you see what they've put up in its place. You'd think someone could have got the government to put it on the list of protected buildings, wouldn't you? They'll be building a motorway through Hyde Park next. It makes you think, doesn't it? What's the world coming to?
Good. Now this time you must talk to your friend on your own.
Have you seen that new office building in the High Street? No, not that one. That's not too bad, actually. No, I'm talking about the one next to the station. Yes, and the thing is, there used to be a lovely old 18th century house there. Yes, there ought to be a law against demolishing buildings like that, especially when you see what they've put up in its place. They'll be building a motorway through Hyde Park next.
That's the end of Oral Practice 2. Oral Practice 3. Listen carefully to the passage and then answer the questions in your book.
Nowadays, everybody likes to talk about the environment and the fact that the conditions under which we live seem to be getting worse in many ways. One of the worst mistakes that has been made in recent years has been the building of high-rise or multi-story blocks of flats to house people in large towns. The disadvantages of such places are many. It's impossible for a mother, for example, to watch her 4-year-old child if she lives on the 10th floor and he wants to play outside. The result is that the child has to stay with her indoors all the time, and this keeps him a prisoner, and the noise he makes in the flat disturbs the old couple who live next door. The lifts are always out of order. In such a large building, it's often quite impossible to know who should be there and who shouldn't. The result is that vandals who have no right to be in the building come in and cause damage.
That's the end of Oral Practice 3. Oral Practice 4. Listen, please.
Mr. Smith bought your house, didn't he?
That's right. The man who bought our house was Mr. Smith.
That's right. The man who bought our house was Mr. Smith.
You spoke to Mrs. Robinson yesterday, didn't you?
That's right. The woman I spoke to yesterday was Mrs. Robinson.
That's right. The woman I spoke to yesterday was Mrs. Robinson. Now you go on in the same way.
Mr. Smith bought your house, didn't he?
That's right. The man who bought our house was Mr. Smith.
You spoke to Mrs. Robinson yesterday, didn't you?
That's right. The woman I spoke to yesterday was Mrs. Robinson.
They made Mr. Thomas the manager, didn't they?
That's right. The man they made the manager was Mr. Thomas.
Mrs. Spencer did your cleaning, didn't she?
That's right. The woman who did our cleaning was Mrs. Spencer.
Paddy painted the kitchen, didn't he?
That's right. The man who painted the kitchen was Paddy.
They sacked Mr. Johnson, didn't they?
That's right. The man they sacked was Mr. Johnson.
And Mr. Parsons replaced him, didn't he?
That's right. The man who replaced him was Mr. Parsons.
Miss Hepworth married him, didn't she?
That's right. The woman who married him was Miss Hepworth. Oral Practice 5. Listen, please. Have you written to your aunt?
Yes, my mother made me write to her.
Yes, my mother made me write to her.
Have you done your homework?
Yes, my mother made me do it.
Yes, my mother made me do it.
Now you go on in the same way. Have you written to your aunt?
Yes, my mother made me write to her.
Have you done your homework?
Yes, my mother made me do it.
Have you had your hair cut?
Yes, my mother made me have it cut.
Have you seen the dentist?
Yes, my mother made me see him.
Have you tidied your room?
Yes, my mother made me tidy it.
Have you sold your motorbike?
Yes, my mother made me sell it.
Have you had your suit cleaned?
Yes, my mother made me have it cleaned.
Have you left home now?
Yes, my mother made me leave home.
Oral Practice 6. Listen, please.
Has your secretary made the tea?
No, but I'm getting her to make it now.
No, but I'm getting her to make it now.
Has the plumber mended the tap?
No, but I'm getting him to mend it now.
No, but I'm getting him to mend it now.
Now you go on in the same way.
Has your secretary made the tea?
No, but I'm getting her to make it now.
Has the plumber mended the tap?
No, but I'm getting him to mend it now.
Have your children tidied their room?
No, but I'm getting them to tidy it now.
Has Jane done the shopping?
No, but I'm getting her to do it now.
Have the men done that job yet?
No, but I'm getting them to do it now.
Has Bill cut the grass?
No, but I'm getting him to cut it now.
Has Dorothy sent that letter yet?
No, but I'm getting her to send it now.
Has Fred put away his tools yet?
No, but I'm getting him to put them away now.
Oral Practice 7. Listen, please. What do you know about herrings?
Well, I know a herring's a fish.
Well, I know a herring's a fish.
What do you know about daffodils?
Well, I know a daffodil's a flower.
Well, I know a daffodil's a flower.
Now you go on in the same way. What do you know about herrings?
Well, I know a herring's a fish.
What do you know about daffodils?
Well, I know a daffodil's a flower.
What do you know about sparrows?
Well, I know a sparrow's a bird.
What do you know about ants?
Well, I know an ant's an insect.
What do you know about carrots?
Well, I know a carrot's a vegetable.
What do you know about bananas?
Well, I know a banana's a fruit.
What do you know about pianos?
Well, I know a piano's a musical instrument.
What do you know about tigers?
Well, I know a tiger's an animal.
Oral Practice 8. Dictation. Cover up the passage and listen, please.
Once upon a time, the manufacturers of drinks would ask everybody to return the bottles to the shop they bought their drinks from, as they were supposed to be very expensive to make, and were needed back to keep the price of the drinks down. Today, it is too expensive to collect many of these bottles, and the manufacturers are now telling us to throw them away. Recently, some people, not knowing what to do with their bottles, left them on the doorstep of one large drinks manufacturer, causing him to be annoyed.
Now you'll hear the passage again, and this time you must write down what you hear. Stop the machine at the pauses.
Once upon a time, the manufacturers of drinks would ask everybody to return the bottles to the shop they bought their drinks from, as they were supposed to be very expensive to make, and were needed back to keep the price of drinks down. Today, it is too expensive to collect many of these bottles, and the manufacturers are now telling us to throw them away. Recently, some people, not knowing what to do with their bottles, left them on the doorstep of one large drinks manufacturer, causing him to be annoyed.
Now, here's the passage again.
Once upon a time, the manufacturers of drinks would ask everybody to return the bottles to the shop they bought their drinks from, as they were supposed to be very expensive to make, and were needed back to keep the price of the drinks down. Today, it is too expensive to collect many of these bottles, and the manufacturers are now telling us to throw them away. Recently, some people, not knowing what to do with their bottles, left them on the doorstep of one large drinks manufacturer, causing him to be annoyed.
Now, check the dictation in your book. That's the end of chapter 12.